Before we dive into the details of this winter's forecast, let's start with the basics. El Niño, La Niña, and ENSO neutral. These terms describe the temperature patterns in the central and eastern Pacific Ocean, and they play a big role in shaping our winters here in the United States. El Niño happens when those waters are warmer than average. This tends to shift the jet stream southward, bringing wetter conditions across the southern tier of the country and often milder conditions for the northern half. La Niña is the opposite, with cooler waters in the Pacific. That usually strengthens the northern jet stream, favoring colder and snowier conditions in the northern U.S., while the south often ends up warmer and drier. And then there's ENSO neutral, which is when sea surface temperatures are near average. This state doesn't force the atmosphere one way or the other, so winters under neutral conditions can be influenced more heavily by other climate drivers, like the Arctic Oscillation or North Atlantic Oscillation. For the 2025 to 26 winter, we're watching for either a weak La Niña or possibly ENSO neutral conditions. That means we won't have a very strong push from the Pacific to dominate our pattern, but historically both weak La Niñas and neutral winters can bring some notable cold and stormy conditions to the central and eastern U.S. To get a better idea of what might happen this year, let's take a look at some analog winters, or past years with similar oceanic and atmospheric setups. Two of my personal best matches for this winter are 1985 to 86 and 2013 to 14. Both of these winters had colder than average conditions across much of the central and eastern U.S., while the southwest tended to stay warmer than normal. This is a pretty stout signal for at least one or two major Arctic intrusions. In terms of precipitation, the southeast and west coast were drier than average, while the Rockies and even parts of Florida were wetter. The 2013 to 14 winter in particular stands out because it brought multiple Arctic outbreaks to the Midwest and Great Lakes, as well as multiple region-wide snowstorms and blizzards along the East Coast. While it's not a guarantee we'll see a repeat of that, it does show that we can get some pretty intense cold and snow across the central and eastern states this winter. Next, let's take a look at NOAA's seasonal outlook for December through February. Their forecast suggests a classic weak La Niña or neutral style pattern. They're calling for a good chance of warmer than average conditions across the south, the southwest, and much of the east coast. Meanwhile, the northern tier of the U.S. has a chance for average or slightly cooler than average conditions, which lines up with the analog years we just looked at. As for precipitation, NOAA's highlighting the Ohio Valley and northern Rockies for wetter than average conditions, while much of the south is expected to be drier than normal. This fits very well with the general weak La Niña influence, where the storm track often favors the northern states. Now, we don't have too much new model data since my last video, so I'll skip that part this time around and go straight into my own forecasts. Starting in December, I'm expecting the pattern to start as a more classic, weak La Niña setup. The northern plains, Great Lakes, and interior Northeast are likely to see the first real shots of Arctic air, leading to colder than average temperatures there. The south and southwest should trend warmer than average, thanks to a weaker subtropical jet stream and the polar jet stream staying to the north. The Pacific Northwest looks unsettled, with semi-frequent systems bringing above average rain and mountain snow. For precipitation, the Great Lakes and Northwest stand a good chance of being stormier than average, with early season storms and lake effect likely being plentiful. On the flip side, the Southeast and Southwest look drier than normal to start the season, which is consistent with past weak La Niña Decembers. For January, I expect the pattern to shift back toward ENSO neutral, which means the cold will expand further south and east, locking in the Midwest, Great Lakes, and Northeast for sustained, below-average temperatures. This is the month where I think we'll see some of the coldest Arctic outbreaks, especially if the polar vortex wobbles or weakens. Some model guidance has suggested this possibility, but I'll show you that when we get closer to winter if it continues to pop up. The Rockies and Great Lakes also look stormy, with frequent snow events. The Ohio Valley could be in the bullseye for multiple winter storms, possibly including ice events as warm southern air meets Arctic cold, pushing down from the north, with some dry periods in between. Meanwhile, the south and southeast will likely stay warmer and drier than average overall, but that doesn't mean they're immune to cold snaps and rainy days. A couple of strong fronts could bring brief freezes even into the deep south. The West Coast also still trends on the drier side, but the Pacific Northwest keeps its active storm track going, meaning a wetter than average January there. By February, the cold pattern shifts a little more toward the south and east, and I still see colder than average conditions hanging on across the Great Lakes, Northeast, and Northern Plains. The warmth across the southeast should expand northward during February, bringing the milder than average conditions further north into the Rockies. But that doesn't mean you won't see snowstorms. The Midwest remains stormy, with more chances for snow, and the Ohio Valley could continue to see a battle zone of mixed precipitation events. Now, the Northeast and Northern Mid-Atlantic look interesting. If the storm track lines up, February could bring some of the biggest snowstorms of the season, though there's no guarantee it will all come as snow. The South and Southeast will probably remain on the warm and dry side overall, but severe weather season could start ramping up early in late February, especially across the Gulf Coast and lower Mississippi Valley. That's something we'll need to watch closely as we transition toward spring. Out west, the Rockies stay snowy, while the Pacific Northwest continues to run wetter than average. The Southwest, unfortunately, is likely to stay drier than normal, raising concerns about water supply heading into spring. Before my overall forecast, I'll touch on potential snowfall anomalies for this season. For the above-average regions, I am pretty confident in saying that the Northwest, Northern Rockies, and Great Lakes should end up with above-average snowfall as a whole. There will be some areas that end up below average in these regions, but I believe frequent snowstorms and lake effect events should give these areas tons of snow. Unfortunately, just like last winter, the Mid-South, Southern Mid-Atlantic, and especially the Southwest look to have below-average snowfall this winter. With a much less active subtropical jet stream and infrequent cold air intrusions, snowfall will be limited in these areas. Everywhere in the white regions is at equal chances of above or below average snowfall, as I am not confident in either scenario for these areas, especially when it comes to the East Coast. Lastly, here's my second overall outlook for this upcoming winter season. Starting in the Pacific Northwest, I would expect a wetter than average winter across most of this region, especially early on, as an active polar jet stream should bring frequent storms into this area. Depending on how quickly this train of storms shuts off will impact your seasonal precipitation, as you could dry out toward the end of the season. Just to the south, a relatively average winter is likely, though snowfall could trend slightly above average. You should experience both cold, stormy periods and warm, dry periods, averaging you out to near normal. The Southwest, especially Southern California, should once again expect a warmer and drier winter than usual. The less active subtropical jet will limit any major storms, likely worsening the drought and extending wildfire season. Coming back up north, the bulk of the brutal cold will, as usual, be focused across the northern plains and Great Lakes, where lake effect snow will also pile up. The weak La Nina into ENSO neutral that we're expecting this winter will be ripe for frequent Arctic outbreaks and snowstorms, especially in December and January. The same can be said to the south of this region, though to a lesser extent. Interior New England, the Ohio Valley, and parts of the Central Plains should expect frequent cold blasts and semi-frequent snowstorms, though not to the extent of your friends to the north. How long the La Nina holds out could impact just how cold you end up, though. The Mid-South, Southern Mid-Atlantic, and South Central Plains will once again be in the battle zone this winter, sandwiched between cold conditions to the north and warm, dry conditions to the south. This region is no stranger to sleet and ice storms, both of which are very possible this winter. You should end up 1 or 2 degrees warmer than average by the end of the season. The Gulf Coast and Southeast will likely be much warmer and drier than average this winter, with a few minor outbreaks of severe weather possible. With a less active subtropical jet stream, storms likely won't frequent this region except when systems pass just to the north across the Mid-South, which looks to be the only real driver of stormy weather. The exception here could be the Arklatex region, where you could see wetter than average conditions early in the season. Lastly, the Central Ohio Valley, Mid-Atlantic, and coastal New England look to end the winter with cold and snow, though how much is yet to be determined. December and January might not bring much in terms of big storms, but February and March could bring a backloaded winter across the area. It's tough to say if this area will end up above or below average when it comes to both temperatures and snowfall, so a roughly average winter may be the best estimate. So, to sum it all up, this winter looks to be a tale of two patterns: colder and stormier across the north, and warmer and drier in the south. Of course, a lot can change as we head toward the winter season, so I'll try to keep updating you as new data comes in. As always, thanks for watching. Be sure to let me know in the comments what kind of winter you're hoping for in your area. And don't forget to subscribe for future updates. Stay safe, and I'll see you in the next one.